The assumption. My name is Isabella, a 32-year-old woman with a seemingly perfect life. I had it all: a loving husband, a beautiful house, and a successful career. My husband, Daniel, was my rock, my everything. We met in college, and our love blossomed as we grew together, eventually tying the knot 6 years later. Our marriage was like a fairy tale, and I couldn't have been happier. But as time passed, I began to feel a growing sense of unease. Daniel's job as an investment banker demanded long hours, and our once unbreakable connection began to wane. The hours spent alone at home felt like an eternity. I tried to fill the void with friends and hobbies, but the loneliness persisted. One day, I met someone. His name was Alex, a charismatic and handsome man I encountered at an art gallery. We exchanged pleasantries and discovered a shared passion for the arts. Our conversations were always lively, and we found ourselves increasingly drawn to each other. It wasn't long before I began to imagine what it would be like to be with him, to escape the crushing loneliness of my marriage. One fateful evening, after a few too many glasses of wine, Alex and I gave in to our desires. The thrill of our secret affair felt intoxicating, an antidote to the emptiness I had been experiencing. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help myself. I was trapped in a cycle of guilt and longing. Then, everything changed. Daniel discovered our affair. He was devastated, and I could see the hurt in his eyes. But instead of reacting with anger or sadness, he chose a different path: revenge. As we prepared for a bitter divorce, I couldn't shake the feeling that Daniel had something up his sleeve. Unbeknownst to me, he had been meticulously gathering evidence of my infidelity, enlisting the help of a private investigator. He was determined to make me pay for my betrayal. This is where my story begins, my journey towards redemption and understanding the consequences of my actions. Little did I know, Daniel's plans would test the limits of my resilience and push me to the brink. In the following parts, I will recount the events that led up to our revenge divorce and how I navigated through the storm that was to come. As the reality of my impending divorce settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Daniel had become cold and distant, a far cry from the loving man I once knew. I was desperate to make amends, but he had erected an impenetrable wall around himself. The legal process began swiftly, with Daniel hiring a ruthless attorney who specialized in high-profile divorces. I was served with papers, and my heart sank as I read through the list of allegations against me. Daniel had compiled evidence of my infidelity, including text messages, photographs, and even secretly recorded conversations with Alex. I felt exposed and vulnerable, as if my entire world was crumbling around me. My own attorney advised me that the case against me was strong and that I should prepare for the worst. I was facing the loss of a significant portion of my assets, as well as the possibility of losing my job due to the negative publicity surrounding the case. I was terrified, but I knew I had to fight back. As the court date approached, the tension between Daniel and me grew to a fever pitch. Every encounter was filled with bitterness and resentment. The love that once defined our relationship had been replaced by anger and betrayal. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, teetering between the life I once knew and the uncertain future that lay ahead. The day of the trial finally arrived, and I felt a mix of fear and determination as I entered the courtroom. Daniel sat across from me, his icy stare cutting through me like a knife. I steeled myself for the battle ahead, knowing that I would need every ounce of strength to face the challenges that awaited me. The trial was brutal. Daniel's attorney laid out the evidence of my affair in excruciating detail, leaving no stone unturned. I was painted as a heartless, selfish woman who had betrayed her husband in the most cruel and callous way. The weight of my actions bore down on me, and I could see the disgust in the eyes of the jury. My attorney did their best to counter the allegations, but it felt like an uphill battle. I testified on my own behalf, sharing my side of the story and the loneliness that had driven me to seek solace in the arms of another man. As I spoke, I could see the jury's expressions shift from disdain to empathy, a small glimmer of hope that perhaps they would understand my plight. But Daniel had one final trick up his sleeve. Just as I thought things couldn't get any worse, he took the stand and revealed the true extent of his revenge plan. Daniel's testimony sent shock waves through the courtroom. He detailed a meticulously crafted plan that went far beyond a simple divorce. It was clear that he had been planning his revenge for months, and the scale of it left me breathless. He revealed that he had used his connections in the financial world to sabotage my career. Daniel had carefully orchestrated a series of events that resulted in my company losing a major client, which in turn led to my demotion. The financial strain had already begun to take its toll, but I had never suspected that he was behind it all. Daniel went on to describe how he had manipulated our friends and family, turning them against me with a calculated blend of lies and half-truths. I had noticed my support network dwindling, but I couldn't have imagined the extent of his deception. He had expertly isolated me, ensuring that I would be left with nothing and no one to turn to. Finally, he detailed his most devastating move yet, the plan to take full custody of our beloved dog, Max. He knew how much I adored Max, and it was clear that he intended to use him as a bargaining chip in the divorce. The thought of losing my furry companion was too much to bear, and I broke down in tears as Daniel's attorney painted me as an unfit pet owner. My own attorney was reeling from the revelations, struggling to find a way to combat Daniel's ruthless strategy. It seemed like I was destined to lose everything: my assets, my career, my friends, and even my beloved dog. I was on the verge of giving up when a sudden realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. I remembered a conversation I'd had with Alex months before, in which he had confided that he was a skilled hacker. It had seemed like a harmless confession at the time, but now I saw it as a potential lifeline. If I could somehow use Alex's expertise to uncover evidence of Daniel's revenge plot, I might be able to turn the tables and salvage what was left of my life. I reached out to Alex, pleading with him to help me. He was hesitant at first, fearing the legal repercussions of his involvement. But after hearing the full extent of Daniel's plan, he agreed to assist me. We knew it was a long shot, but it was my only hope for justice and redemption. With Alex's help, I began a daring counteroffensive to expose Daniel's true nature and the depths of his deception. We worked tirelessly, racing against the clock as the trial continued to unfold. The pressure was immense, but I was determined to fight for my future. As the final day of the trial approached, we made a breakthrough that would change everything. With the evidence we had gathered, I was ready to face Daniel and reveal the truth to the world. The stage was set for the most dramatic moment of my life, and I knew that the stakes had never been higher. The last day of the trial dawned, and I could feel the tension in the air as I entered the courtroom. I held onto the newfound evidence tightly, knowing that it was my last hope for redemption. As I glanced at Daniel, I noticed a smug expression on his face, as if he was already celebrating his victory. But I was determined to expose the truth and change the course of my fate. As the proceedings began, my attorney requested permission to present new evidence. The judge hesitated, aware of the unusual nature of this request. But after a brief discussion, she allowed it, and my attorney handed over the files we had painstakingly compiled. The evidence we presented was nothing short of a bombshell. Alex had managed to uncover a series of incriminating documents and emails that detailed Daniel's elaborate revenge plot. There were records of his financial manipulation, as well as correspondence with the private investigator he had hired to spy on me. As the judge and jury reviewed the evidence, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. The shock and disbelief were palpable, and I could see the color drain from Daniel's face as he realized the implications of our discovery. My attorney wasted no time in arguing that Daniel's actions were a clear indication of his malicious intent and vindictiveness. He pointed out that not only had Daniel sought to ruin my life, but he had also deliberately manipulated the legal system to achieve his goals. The jury seemed to take these arguments to heart, and I could see their sympathy for me growing. In a last-ditch attempt to salvage his case, Daniel's attorney tried to discredit the evidence, claiming that it had been illegally obtained. However, the judge dismissed this argument, stating that the severity of Daniel's actions outweighed any concerns over the admissibility of the evidence. As the trial came to a close, I held my breath, waiting for the jury's decision. After hours of deliberation, they returned with their verdict. They found in my favor, acknowledging that Daniel's revenge plot had been a significant factor in my infidelity. The relief I felt was indescribable, and I could hardly believe that I had managed to turn the tables on Daniel. The judge granted me a fair divorce settlement, and to my immense relief, I was awarded custody of Max. Daniel was ordered to pay a significant amount in damages, and his reputation was left in tatters. In the aftermath of the trial, I began the long process of rebuilding my life. I sought therapy to heal the emotional wounds of my marriage and the divorce, and I vowed never to let loneliness drive me to make such a devastating mistake again. As for Daniel, I heard that he moved away to start anew, his once successful career a shadow of what it used to be. While I didn't take pleasure in his downfall, I knew that I had escaped a toxic situation and fought for my own happiness. My journey had been fraught with pain and betrayal, but in the end, I emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. My comment: this is one of the rare moments that the cheating wife post her affair details online. I had a tough time digesting this story as I was working on this. What did you think? Story 2. Well, I did something really stupid last night, and I got caught doing it. Last night I was crying again. Husband went out with friends again. He canceled our counseling session last week, and so I had a few drinks myself. I got a little tipsy, and I messaged my ex and said way too much. I said things like I missed him and I still dream of him. I was reaching for someone to care, and it was stupid. It was so stupid, and husband came home late and drunk, read the messages on my iPad, and left. We have been messaging back and forth all morning. He's livid, understandably. I apologized up and down and asked for his forgiveness. He said he doesn't want me or this marriage, and I told him I would never sign papers and I didn't even want to say the D word. Honestly, I don't know if he will be able to forgive me. Tensions are very high right now, and I am very ashamed. I don't know what made me do what I did. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. Before this, we have been trying to work on distance that had grown over 2 years' time. By we, I mean mostly me, but then I did this really stupid thing. We have been married 10 years and have an 8-year-old child. He is using my stupid mistake as a reason for wanting to end it, but I can't help but think of everything leading up to this. Not that I want to excuse my crappy decision. I plan on the elimination of alcohol. I hear what you're saying, but I have been having such a hard time expressing my feelings with him. I have done things daily for 6 months to try and mend what has been broken, and I just don't feel the return. I should not have done what I did, and I will never forgive myself for it. I am scared at this point. I don't want to end things, but you can't have a marriage that one person wants and another does not. I am so lost right now. Never thought I would be in this situation, and I did it to myself. I am not this type of person. It was a stupid choice in a vulnerable moment. We live on the other side of the world from each other, and I would never do anything physical with anyone. It was a stupid cry for help for attention from a man. I haven't had attention from my husband in so long, and I have talked to him about that many times in the last 6 months, but he hasn't heard me like I needed him to. I know for my part that the only infidelity was the messages that I wrote last night back and forth. I don't believe there is infidelity on his part. I don't know that he would want me to ever write him again even for that, but I will ask him, and if he says yes, I will attempt that letter and let him know that I will do that. Agreed on the alcohol, but I know that will be a difficult thing for him. He drinks almost daily, and I drink often too, but not as much as him. I know I don't need it, especially if my marriage is on the line. I'm not sure about how his reaction will be. Problems equals we have grown in distance over a 2-year time span, when 6 months ago, we got into a big fight and all of our problems came out. Our lack of communication, lack of intimacy, religion, which we are now on the same page in. I just went through a difficult time for a while. But I asked if we could start going to church and he agreed, and his job, friends, going out, drinking, always coming before me and our son. He would always ask me if I cared if he went out, and I wasn't honest with him and said it was fine, because I didn't want to be a neg, and wanted him to be able to go out without having to ask. My justification was always, if he really wanted to be home with me and our son, then he would be. I guess that's mainly what we are going through. I can't explain everything in one letter. We did start marriage counseling a few months ago. We have only been to 3 sessions, and he canceled last week's due to work, and I really hope he agrees to go back after what I did. He is usually not out in bars drinking at all hours of the night, but at his work friends' houses. I certainly do not hang out with single or divorced girlfriends. I have very few friends actually. I live in Okinawa on the other side of the world from my family, and also the other side of the world from the ex I contacted. It was one time, and no advances like you said were made, but I said awful things, like I miss him because he was my first love, dream of him often, and that I was having marriage issues and was feeling very alone. Even saying these things again makes me sick. I am disgusted with myself. I don't feel that way. I was just craving attention from someone, even if it was only on the internet. It was through Facebook Messenger, and I deleted him already, and I deactivated my Facebook account for the time being to just reflect on what I've done. I mainly use Facebook to keep in contact with family. He has come home since everything happened, but we are not talking now. He needs to cool off. I get it. My ex was nice and just said that he missed me too and thinks of me too, but that he hoped that things would work out in my marriage, because I did tell him that was ultimately what I want. I was just feeling alone. I will ask my husband how he thinks I should handle it once he is talking to me. I definitely want my marriage to work. I would never do anything like this again. I just don't know how to convince him that I would never do this again. We broke up like 15 years ago, and I have been married for 10. He was a pretty rotten guy when we dated, but we had one of those very intense relationships. Very high, very low. He cheated on me many times. He physically abused me, emotionally abused me. It was pretty bad, but when it was great, which is why I stuck around back then, and I was young. I have seen so many marriages fail though, and I really don't want mine to be one of them. We have a son as well, and I do not want to do that to him. I know that patience will have to be a virtue with me now. And yes, I have baggage. Most people do. I was with my ex for 5 years, HS and after, and he abused me, physically and emotionally. While I was dealing with that unhealthy relationship, my mom committed X. I was 16, and I found a lot of comfort with my ex. It wasn't always bad. I finally broke free from all of it, but it left a lot of scars. I was happily married for 8 of the last 10 years, but I don't know what happened. The last 2 have been so hard. I do focus on my child more than anyone. Everyone says what a great mom I am, even my husband that doesn't think of me as a good wife. I don't blame him. I do so much for my son, and most of it I do alone. I already feel like a single parent in the emotional sense of the word. Last year, I volunteered all the time at his school. I work with daily on education, take him to all kinds of new, fun, sometimes cultural events. We live in Okinawa. I also over the past 2 years discovered something that makes me happy, and that was running. I have run 2 marathons, 2 half marathons, and numerous other races. All of these things help. But in addition to that, I have been dealing with my marriage, and it is really taking its toll on me. Back in February, I made a commitment to really work on the distance that grew, and I had, and then had a stupid moment where I screwed up. I can't go back. I can only move forward. I don't believe in divorce, and I know a lot of people are saying to let it go, and I look weak by wanting to hold on. But divorce is something I really don't want to do, and I would do whatever is necessary to avoid it. Letting go seems like the easy way. The easy way is usually not the right way. I know I gave him an excuse. I hate myself for it. People make mistakes though, and I do not want to throw away the last 10 years of marriage. I guess everyone looks weak sometimes. I screwed up and now I have to figure out how to fix it, even if it takes a really long time. The counseling session. He canceled it because of work, which is why a lot of things get canceled when it comes to family. I am usually understanding about it, but with our marriage the way it's been for so long, it just has been harder and harder to deal with. I am not surprised, I guess. I just don't believe in divorce, and we are both Christians. And yes, I made an awful mistake, but I don't think divorce is the right answer. It would be the easy choice, for him at least, but easy isn't always right. We did once have an amazing marriage, and I do not want to throw away 10 years, and we have a son. He has also made mistakes these past couple of years, nothing like what I did, but I am not the only one responsible for the way our marriage is right now. I am the one that made a very stupid mistake that I would never do again. I have asked him how he wants me to handle the NC communication to my ex, and he said it is up to me to handle it however I want. He did say that I can talk to whoever I want and that he believes I'm sorry. He just doesn't know what his next move will be. He also said he feels lost and embarrassed. I told him I am the one who should feel embarrassed because my actions were disgraceful. As far as my ex, I think I will block him on social media, Facebook. That was how I contacted him, and besides that, just leave it alone. I don't want to say anything to him anyways. I would have if my husband liked the idea I presented to him though. I have asked him about times that might be good for MC and if he would go, and he hasn't answered me yet. I plan on calling Monday anyways and making the appointment, letting him know, and praying he will come around to wanting to go. Any ideas on how to build trust? How does one do that on a day-to-day basis with purpose? Obviously being trustworthy, but is there any special actions I can take to make the process move a little faster? I have thought of that. Telling him I am going to quit drinking. I don't want to say I'll never do it again, because a glass of wine with dinner at a party doesn't seem wrong to me. But I will tell him that I plan on quitting altogether until our marriage is back where it needs to be, and that I will not ever indulge again, if that makes sense. I like this idea. I do need to be more upfront about how I feel about things. I have done the go-with-the-flow thing ever since I was a kid. I saw my parents do it, and that's what I do. I need to work on changing this aspect of myself. It won't be easy, as I am always artful of any kind of confrontation, and sometimes even when I don't mean to come across in a confrontational way, I do, which is why it has always been easier to just go with the flow. I did ask him if I were to look on his phone or computer if there would be anything that might make him seem like he is doing anything wrong, and he said absolutely not, and I guess all I can do is believe him. I don't like spying on people. I would like to trust that he means what he says. I look forward to actually talking to him. So today, I took our son to the pool to get out of the house and help him have a good time, even though I am feeling horrible about the events of the past few days. While I was there, I took your advice to let him know that I was going to quit drinking because of how I hurt him. He said he didn't think it was necessary, and then a few minutes later, told me he was going to stay in a hotel tonight, and to lie to our son and say he had to work and tell him that he loves him very much. I did, of course, only because I am not going to suck our child into our problems, but it didn't feel good. When we got home, I saw he took the rest of the beer that was in the fridge, still praying. But again, it's things like this that make me just want to cry and cry. I responded to him with this: you know how I feel about you are leaving, but I respect your decision to do what you have to do. Know that I will be praying for you, me, and our marriage at our house today, and I will be going to church with our son tomorrow. Part of me wants to say more, but I don't know what that is just yet, and I don't want to come from a place of anger, so I need to think about it longer. I do want to write him a letter though. The last time we had a huge fight, in February, he left for a week, and that was when the problems of the last 2 years came out, which was good, but I hated that he left. He knew I hated it. Now he left again. I just feel like you can't solve anything by just leaving. I also know he needs to cool down, and I'm not sure how long that will take. I'm deeply saddened that he will most likely be drinking tonight though. We have been dealing with a lot in the marriage already, all not my fault I might add. This was just the stupidest thing that has been done. I know I will not forgive myself until he can forgive me. I am devastated. I know the damage is done and I can't take it back, but I am so incredibly sorry, and I am not going to drink anymore, and I'm going to pray that somehow we will be able to get through this. Before this, I had been trying daily for 6 months to do things to mend my marriage, with very little effort on his part. It all kind of came to a head the night I messed up and reached out to a man that used to once care for me a very long time ago. It was idiotic of me. I live on the other side of the world from family and friends because of my husband's job and have followed him around the world for 10 years. This isn't so much unresolved issues. It's more I was reaching out for someone to show me kindness that was a guy. I will work on that issue with my personal counselor. I don't have feelings for my ex though. It was a reaching out to something familiar from very long ago at a very lonely moment while I was drinking. Again, dumb choice, but I really would do anything in my power to fix it. Anything. And it would never happen again, ever. My husband is in the military, so they have American bases here, so that makes it easier, but it's still very difficult. We are both Americans, and neither one of us speaks Japanese, just very basic things like hello, thank you, excuse me, which makes some experiences a tad frustrating. We have been here for 2 years. Our problems started shortly before our move. I have followed him anywhere he needs to go though, and this is the first place that I haven't worked. But I am going to school and I do volunteer work at my son's school, and I'm a runner. The isolation is awful. I've been handling it the best I can though. I really just wish these past 6 months of effort were making a difference. My stupid mistake I feel like negated all of my efforts before that, and I don't feel like that's fair. He was much more religious than me before all of this, but we all stopped going to church for many years. I told him I was going to start going a few months back, and asked if we could all go together, and he was on board, and happy about it. I have been getting more involved with him as far as reading my Bible. I would talk to him about things I have read though, and even after all these years he can still quote scripture that he remembers. He never fully let that go. It used to be work-related drinking, socializing, but now it's more just to get drunk it seems. He says it's blowing off steam, but it's nightly, so I don't know how much that can be used as an excuse. Again, I'm not innocent in the drinking matter. I was drinking often too, only at home though, but I'm done now. I did what I did while drinking and lonely, and I don't want to be there again. At the instant I did what I did, I thought my husband is out again. I started thinking about the fact that he seems irritated with me when I even try to give him a kiss on the cheek goodbye. How he doesn't want to be intimate with me. I remembered how it used to be, and it's been so long. Loneliness was my biggest feeling, and wondering what I did to make him pull away for so long. And my ex popped in my head. I wondered what he was doing. He was the only other guy that I was ever really in love with, even though he was a piece of crap for much of our relationship. And I have that Facebook Messenger thing, and I honestly thought, what the hell, let's see what happens. So I asked him how he was doing, and he responded, and we started a dialogue. I was drunk and crying while I did all of this, and honestly consequences did not pop into my head until after it had already been done. I left my iPad out and husband found all of our messages back and forth. I also have another friend that I was messaging with that is a guy that is a friend that is married with 5 kids that is a man of God, that he is upset about, because we said we loved each other. Like a love you, thanks for being there type love though. I explain that, and you can see from our messages we usually talk about God, so this isn't the biggest issue, but I could tell that got to him too. I have since blocked my ex. I'm thinking about doing the same with the other guy, only because I don't want to do anything to mess this up. He wants to finally talk tonight after work. I'm so scared he is going to say he wants to leave us. I don't think I could handle it. I want to be with him and I've never felt sorrier for anything in my whole life. 6 months ago, we laid out all of our issues, and the biggest by far was communication. We just stopped talking about things that mattered. Usually when we argued, it would be a short disagreement, and then he would tell me to just stop, and I would, to walk away, and just not bring it up again. Not healthy, I know now. We both had a tendency to make the other feel stupid with about their stance on certain subjects, but neither of us realized we were doing that to the other. Again, huge lack of communication. He got into his groove of working all the time, and I got into my groove of keeping busy with everything else, and we just floated by for 2 years. 6 months ago, though, we talked about everything, and then a few months after that started counseling. He did show effort by going to counseling, and I was happy for that. But there were moments when I would go to kiss him on the cheek and he would just seem irritated. I didn't feel like he even wanted to be near me, and I didn't tell him how that was making me feel. I have a hard time with that, and I don't know why. He wants to talk tonight, and I am so scared about what will happen. I am trying so hard to focus my attention on anything else. I haven't even been able to barely eat, and I've barely slept. I really hope my words will come to me tonight for him to see just how badly I want us to make this work. And I hope so much that he hasn't already made up his mind about leaving us. I know he felt like that a couple of days ago, but he hasn't said anything since, just the once. And he said he wasn't sure he wanted me or this marriage anymore. We were very happily married for 8 years. The last 2 years have been difficult. For my part, I know I want to work on my marriage. Life got busy and we stopped focusing on each other for a very long time. And then I did this very stupid thing. Other couples have moved past much worse, and I know for my part I would never do something so stupid again. I would never call my marriage a sham. My comment: I think you both got a warning sign in this error you made. But also, he needs to work on your relation. Whatever happens, do not let you be talked down too much. You made a mistake, but try not to exaggerate, or let it be exaggerated. Communication and intimacy are the issues that led to this happening, in my opinion. I hope it worked out well, but anyway, how this may end, it has been a trigger for change, hopefully for the better, whichever way it goes.